Hi, I'm Pankaj. I cook at Dramz Whisky Bar and Lounge, which is in Mehrauli. Today, we'll be doing a dish called quinoa and mixed grain casserole along with vegetables, which is served with pan-seared breads and lacto-fermented ginger ale. So, for the casserole, we have got various vegetables, which has got green zucchini and yellow zucchini, red bell peppers, yellow bell peppers, fresh French beans, and the grains we have got quinoa, which has been soaked in water and then boiled briefly. We have got red rice here, which has been soaked in water and then boiled briefly, and then arborio rice. One thing to be noted here is, like, instead of this red rice, other grains which might be chosen are either the wild rice or the bamboo rice. Everything works fine. Now for garnish of this dish, and to make the dish look more beautiful, we have got some homegrown herbs and flowers, edible flowers. First we'll make the casserole. We'll leave the casserole in the oven, and meanwhile we'll start making other things. Now to make the casserole, a little bit of oil. To that we'll add finely chopped onion. Onion can also be replaced by shallots or by spring onions. Everything works well with this dish. It's a kind of foolproof dish. Anyone can make it. We'll just kind of briefly saute all these things together. Now next we'll add the vegetables to it. Now because beans have got more firm texture as compared to the zucchinis and bell peppers, this has to be the first thing which goes in. We'll saute it very briefly. Then we'll add the zucchinis, both green and yellow. Now to this we will add pureed tomatoes. I have diluted it with a little bit of vegetable stock. Now all the grains. This is quinoa which I'm adding. I'll add the arborio rice. If you don't have arborio rice, you can use sticky rice or any kind of rice which has got high amount of starch in it. If I have added, say, 2 tablespoons of quinoa, then I have added only 1 tablespoon of this starchy rice, and say 1.5 tablespoons of the red rice. Other good grains to be added into this are Himalayan millet, then as I have told you, bamboo rice, and the normal finger millet. Even they work well. It's kind of a very wholesome and grainy thing. Now once it kind of gets boiled, we'll add the bell peppers to it. We'll let everything boil together once. Now we'll add the Parmesan cheese to it. Just very little to give that rich and a little bit of that umami flavor, because Parmesan has got that umami flavor into it. Now at this point we'll reduce the heat completely, put it in a casserole, and it goes into the oven. That's where it gets finished, and once we take it out, then we add basil to it, a little more of Parmesan cheese, and then we just simply serve it. Now it's ready to go in the oven. So meanwhile this is being finished or baked in the oven, we will make other accompaniments. Now to make the pan toasted bread, what we have done is we make our own baguette and we have sliced it. We have got a nice polenta crust on top of it to give it extra crispiness. But any bread will work fine. The bread directly goes onto a hot pan and that's where we toast it. We are toasting it right now. Now once it has started becoming hot, that's the time when you add the butter. So I've already cut butter in cubes. So yeah. Now it has got that nice color. The bread gets a kind of crispy texture on top of it, nice brown color, yet it is soft inside. So you can see it. Now this thing is done, and the third and the last thing of component of this dish is the lacto fermented ginger ale. Now because that's a procedure which takes at least 7 days time, so we have got this ginger ale made here, but definitely we'll start making the culture here and we'll show you how to make that culture. Now to make the lacto fermented ginger ale, we would need few very basic things. First thing is we'll make the culture, and then we'll keep fermenting it for next 7 days, and at the end of the 7th day we'll just strain it to obtain this liquid which we have kept in the bottle. The things that are required for making lacto fermented ginger ale are mason jar which has been sterilized, muslin cloth, water which has been dechlorinated, or you can also take any purified bottled water, ginger with skin on it, and sugar. One thing to be taken care of when you make the culture is that when you wash the ginger, it should not be washed in a chlorinated water. Whole idea is we want lactobacillus, the bacteria, to grow in here, and chlorine kills the bacteria. So we want so the best thing is to use dechlorinated water for washing the ginger as well. Procedure is very simple. Add water to the mason jar. Add approx a tablespoon of sugar to it. Instead of this, little bit about the lacto fermentation. It's a fermentation which it is a bacterial fermentation. The common form of fermentation that we know commercially is the yeast-based fermentation, but this is bacterial fermentation. The same fermentation which happens in the making of yogurt or curd. Why do we do this is because the lactobacillus bacteria, when you drink anything which has been lacto fermented, the lactobacillus bacteria goes inside your body and sits in your gut, which helps in breaking down food and better absorption of nutrients. So having said that, now we will be just kind of giving it a brief stir, and then we will cover it with the muslin cloth or any cloth or a clean duster so that this can keep breathing. I'm using a rubber band for this. And then we'll keep it at any warm spot, not necessarily hot, just warm spot. And every day, probably because I have done it right now, so tomorrow by same time I'll open this up, stir it, and add the same amount of sugar and ginger. Sugar is basically the food for the lactobacillus which is growing inside this. And after 7th day, this is what we will have. Now this is our time for assembly. So we have got all our components ready, which is the casserole, which is out of the oven now, the bread and the lacto fermented ginger ale. So we will start plating it. Here we have got our casserole, which was baking in the oven for 10-15 minutes. So everything is cooked together, all the flavors have mixed into each other, and it looks good though it's hot. Now we have got the herbs which I was talking about earlier, so we'll start garnishing it. So loads of it. Then the flowers that we grow ourselves, these are the mustard flowers. These are begonia ones to add color and nice clear acidity. And then Elysium flower, kind of in totality it will make it look really beautiful. Now these are our Indian wild sorrel. We have harvested them, kind of foraged them basically from our backyard. We don't grow them, they grow on their own. Once this is done, the breads have to come here, and the drink has to go in any kind of glass that you prefer. The purpose of the drink to be served is because now this casserole will be kind of a little bit rich because of the nuttiness of the grains and the starch of the rice plus the cheese that we have added, though it's a little bit. This kind of gives a nice refreshing flavor and keeps cleansing the palate in between. And because it's slightly sweeter, not that sweet but slightly sweeter, it doesn't kind of overpowers anything, just goes well along with this casserole. So this is ready to go.